The trade agreement between the United States and India is shaking up the global energy market. Delhi has agreed to limit imports of Russian oil in exchange for lower tariffs from Washington and deeper economic cooperation. This move undermines the Kremlin's financial foundations and shifts the balance of power not only in Asia but also in Europe. The first effects of the Indo-American cooperation can be seen today in the waters of the Indian Ocean. For several days now, Russian tankers have been drifting there with oil that Moscow has no one to sell to. India's restriction on the purchase of Russian oil has struck at the heart of Moscow's energy security. For years, Russia has relied on raw material exports for large budget revenues, which it uses to finance its military. Now it seems that one of the pillars of its economy is collapsing. The impact of the India-USA deal is hard to overstate. Russia has a lot to lose if new trade agreements limit its role not only in India, but also in other markets, including those related to the so-called shadow fleet. These ships, which are used to circumvent sanctions and transport Russian oil to India and China, are already under heavy international pressure.
Russia has a lot to lose because, first of all, Russian oil companies have been active in the Venezuelan oil industry. They do have a stake there. And if the United States is going to exert control and push adversaries out, then Russia could potentially lose access or have a diminished role to play in Venezuela's oil industry and its future.
This could significantly weaken the budget needed to finance a war in Ukraine. According to maritime websites, Russian tankers have been wandering the waters of the Indian Ocean for several days, waiting for new contracts. More than a dozen tankers loaded with Russian Urals oil are sailing toward Asia or idling along the route, a sign of producers racing to get cargoes closer to China as India pulls back from the trade. These vessels, carrying a combined 10 to 12 million barrels of oil, are spread across the Indian Ocean and off the coasts of Malaysia, China and Russia. 5 of them are indicating for orders or China for orders as their status, according to data intelligence firm KPLER, a category that usually means they don't yet have a specific buyer or discharge port. Tallinn, one of the strategic points on Moscow's trade routes, openly talks about the need to take further steps to limit Russian exports. The Estonian foreign minister points out that most Russian oil and gas still flow through the Baltic Sea, which provides scope for increasing pressure through sanctions and monitoring tankers.
I can't see nothing right now.
The full ban of the maritime services, I do hope for these tankers will be there because 60% of Russian oil and gas export is going through the Baltic Sea. So you can imagine between Estonia and Finland there is 80 kilometers.
At the same time as the talks in Washington, India emphasizes that decisions on raw material purchases are the responsibility of domestic companies and are intended to serve their own energy security. However, there is no doubt about the course Indian companies will take in today's geopolitical environment. Importantly, it has been officially confirmed for the first time that the Americans are entering the raw materials market.
Buying of crude oil or LNG, LPG from the US is in India's own strategic interests as we diversify our oil sources. But the decisions are taken by the buyers, by the companies themselves. So the trade deal doesn't discuss who will buy what and from where.
Given that China is the second largest buyer of Russian raw materials, it is almost certain that India, with a good offer from the United States or Venezuela, will choose a different path from its regional rival. This will also deprive Beijing of leverage in talks with Delhi, since its of close relations with Moscow will no longer be relevant. The USA will further expand its influence in Asia.